Hi everybody, welcome to my weekly Life or Biz Wisdom. It's so great to have you here, whether you are about to come on live, I don't think there's anyone live just yet, or whether you're watching the replay, or in fact, as I am uploading my Facebook Live videos onto YouTube, maybe you're here on YouTube with me, so welcome and thank you so much for joining me. So what I want to talk about tonight is a concept around the idea of our to-dos, getting our to-dos done. In other words, getting stuff done. And this idea that perhaps daily to-dos are not as effective unless we actually consider them in a weekly way of thinking, using a weekly approach to begin with. And also I wanted to talk about why it's really important to limit how many to-dos you have going on at any one time. So I'm going to get on to that. But first, as I said, this concept of weekly to-dos, which are going to be more effective for you and more successful for you, therefore, than daily to-dos. So I can imagine that a lot of you, and most of us do, we write down our list of to-dos, things that we want to get done, tasks, whatever word you want to use, which is a really yucky word, makes it sound like such hard work, on a list, and it could be paper-based. Lots of people still use that. It could be, and that's fine, that's okay. I'm not saying it's not good if it's paper-based. Or you could be doing it electronically in some sort of program. There's lots of, even your notes app on your phone, and there's lots of ways to capture your to-dos, such as Evernote and OneNote and all that sort of thing, and including even, of course, your good old diary or calendar. Lots of people use those. And you probably do it on a daily basis. In other words, you will write down your to-dos, perhaps each day, and just in a linear way, as in a list, one below the other, etc. And of course, what often happens is you end up with this great big list. Now, a lot of us, in fact, most of us say that we're too busy. I don't often hear people say that they're not busy enough. Yes, we can be bored at times, but I certainly hear in my line of work many more people saying, I'm just too busy, rather than, oh, give me more to do, please, I need more to do. And so if you're writing all your to-dos on a list, you can easily get or have a really big, long list. And so what I think happens, I don't know about you, but certainly about me, it does for me. As soon as I see a long list like that, it's like, oh my God, that's just so much. How am I going to get all that done? That looks like hard work. Wow. And what happens then mentally is that we can actually start to feel those feelings that I was portraying then, in terms of a bit of panic, a bit of fear, a bit of frustration and overwhelm. Overwhelm is a big one. How am I going to get all these things done? And so you might start off the day, often we do, with motivation. We can get stuck into them. You might be crossing off a number of them as you go, and that's great. But often what happens is that things crop up, excuse me, and or we might end up with our motivation starting to wane. Things, as I said, can crop up. Also, to-dos, we don't usually allocate a time to them. Now, you may do, if you use a diary, you might do that. But quite often, if we're just using a regular sort of list, then we don't. And what that means is that tasks can take longer than we think they're going to, because that's often the case. And then instead of having 6 things done by lunchtime, you've done 2 or 3 things. And what that does is that's actually really demoralizing for us. It ends up demotivating us. So it's the opposite of what we want in terms of being motivated. So what I actually suggest that you think about doing, if you're wanting to get away from that experience, and there's an awful feeling as well where at the end of the day, you feel you have to, or you know you have to carry over those to-dos to the next day or whenever you hopefully will have time to do it. And psychologically in our brain, that is demoralizing. It's basically saying we didn't do what we wanted to do. We can't literally tick all of them off our list. And when we tick things off our list, either physically or metaphorically, it's actually motivating. And it actually gives us a little bit of adrenaline or dopamine. Maybe not adrenaline so much, but dopamine definitely, which is the feel-good chemical. It's like, yay, I did it. And that is really addictive. And that's the sort of thing that we want, because that is what motivates us, because we want more of that good feeling. But if we have the end of the day, as I was saying, where it's like, oh, I did a third of what was on my list, then that's the opposite. It's actually not helping us psychologically. And as I said, it's demotivating. So I want to introduce this concept to you of actually you looking at your to-dos, first of all, using a week approach. So what I suggest is that you either do it on a Sunday night if you can, or first thing Monday morning, whichever is going to work best for you, and look at and identify what your to-dos are, what your priorities are for that week. And there might be some things that are going to be have to be done on specific days, and that's fine. You can put that in your calendar or diary if you use one of those, and I do suggest it'd be great if you did. And you allocate sufficient time for the task or the to-do, and so for the others that aren't necessarily very time dependent in terms of as a day, have a think about, well, first of all, which are going to be the to-dos that are going to push your business forward and your life generally forward. So you need to have some sort of prioritization process, and I'll talk about that more in another video. So you need to be able to decide what your to-dos will be. But have a think about what can you reasonably do in terms of the to-dos over the course of the week. So it's not necessarily dependent on a specific day. As I said, some of the time bound ones are, but you'll actually find that there's not that many. Often with our to-dos, there's a little bit of leeway, a little bit of flexibility that we can have. So what is actually really good is to think about prioritizing the to-dos that you can do over the course of the week. You definitely want to have them done by the end of the week, because if we don't have any time parameters, that whole idea of Parkinson's law, which I've talked about before, where our work will expand or shrink to the time that we have it allotted, generally speaking. So if you need, or it's better if you have some sort of containment, and that's why I'm suggesting the containment of a week, but not have that pressure of these to-dos that are all on one day, for instance. And of course, it does bring up this whole idea, as I was also saying, about not scheduling or not even listing too many to-dos at any particular time. So the concept that I am referring to is called Kanban. It's a Japanese process that actually was developed in terms of manufacturing, but it can be used for all of us in our lives, in our personal lives, as well as in our businesses. And what's so great about that is this process of working on your to-dos over the course of the week. And you might have certain stages, and if I think about business, I can think about that the to-do has to go through, like the first little step, then the next step, then the next step, and you can work out what those steps are and gradually work through those over the course of the week. Now, these are particularly for the to-dos that have got a little bit of meat to them. They're not just, I'm going to go to the bank later today sort of thing. That is a to-do, but they're not the sort of to-dos I'm talking about. I'm talking about the high priority ones from the point of view of the important ones, maybe not necessarily urgent, but certainly important. Something that will, as I said, move your business forward or your life forward, that you know that when you have that done at the end of the week, you are going to have some level of achievement or fulfillment that's actually pretty darn good. It's important. It may or not be urgent, because it could be urgent as well, but it definitely will be important. So to see this progression of these tasks, rather than, as I said, a single list on a specific day that you often will have a really long list that, as I said before, can be demoralizing. Looking at this progression now, the thing is though, on every given day, you only want up to about 3 to-dos, 3 decent to-dos at any one time. You don't want to be having too many, and you need to see the progression. Really, it's actually about 3 or 4 over the course of the week. And so there might be some of the days when there's up to the 3. They will move at different paces. So something that you could actually start on a Monday, you might have finished by the Wednesday, and that's great. If you do, then you might be able to start another to-do on the Wednesday and see whether you're able to complete that by the Sunday. And if you can't, then yes, you do need to, or I recommend that you carry it over into the next week if you really need to. But that whole concept is that by the end of the week, you will have a minimum of 3 decent to-dos done, which are going to progress your, as I said before, your business or your life in whatever way. And it's up to you how you prioritize them. As I said, I tend to suggest that these are for the things that, you know, really will make a difference, or be part of something that's bigger, that over a number of weeks will really move you forward. If they're actually joined or part of a bigger project or piece of work or whatever it is that you want to do, then that's fine. But the couple of concepts or things to really think about is not having a great big list that is static. It just sits there waiting for you to cross it off, and you may or may not get them done, as I said. To think about progressing. If you have your calendar in front of you, or a diary that is a week view, and look at how you can actually progress, work a bit on the to-do over the course of the week. But knowing that on any given day, there's no more than 3 of those sort of tasks for you to be working on, and that you can't work on more than 3 throughout the week unless one or more, or until at least one has been completed. So you can't be bringing anything new into the mix until you've actually completed something. So that's a really brief example. So as I said before, or to start off with, this is a weekly view of getting things done based on the Kanban method. And it's actually really so much more, it's so much more doable, and I think it's a lot more fun, because being creative and visual, if you actually put it in your diary for the different days and you see it move, so to speak, as I said, if you have a weekly view, that's a really good plus. That's the dopamine effect I was talking about before. And if you limit the amount of these to-dos, this system or this design won't work unless you, and this is the secret, one of the secrets to it, is that you, as I said before, you can't have too many to-dos on the boil at once. You limit that to 3 or 4 at the very most. You move them to see that they're progressed over the week. If you do finish something earlier than Sunday or Friday, whatever time you designated to be the end of the week, then you can start something, but not until you've finished at least one thing, and then one thing to replace that only. So that's the value of the weekly approach to your to-dos, and why you need to limit the number of to-dos that you do on any given day. So I hope that that is useful for you. It is a new concept. It may be something that you have some questions about. It is something that I'll talk about more progressively as we go along, because this is just a very brief introduction to that whole idea of it. And of course, as usual, any comments, questions, please do put them in the comments below, or contact me. And if this interests you, I would love you to let me know, and if you would actually like some support in setting up this system, then please do contact me, because that's something that I can offer to work with you to be able to do that. And it's that case of when you see it happening and it brings it to life. And I have used it in my business and in fact my personal life the last year or so in particular, and it has been really, really positive. And it's a lot more fun, and I feel more in control. And that's a really big part of it, because there's nothing worse than feeling out of control when, as I said, the end of the day, there's all these to-dos that haven't been done, and you know you've got a big list the following day. So that's not a nice feeling at all. So I will leave you with that. I wish you an enjoyable rest of the day and night, and look forward to seeing you next time. Namaste. Bye for now.